Do you remember your old high school gym class? The squeak of sneakers on the polished wood floor, the slightly dusty smell of the locker room, and of course, the voice of your gym teacher echoing off the walls. Now, I want you to recall a specific moment. The class is lined up, and the teacher calls out, "All right, everyone, let's touch our toes." And so we did. We bent at the waist, arms dangling down, maybe bouncing a little bit, trying to get those fingertips to graze our shoelaces. For decades, this was the gold standard of a good stretch. We were told it was the key to a flexible back and loose hamstrings. And maybe you still do it. Perhaps it's part of your morning routine, a quick bend over before you start your day, or a stretch you do before a round of golf or a session in the garden. It seems harmless, right? It feels productive. But what if I told you that this one single stretch, a movement ingrained in us since we were teenagers, might be one of the primary reasons your back is aching in your 60s, 70s, and beyond? Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, oh, here we go again. Another online guru telling me everything I've ever done is wrong. And I get that. You're practical, you're no-nonsense, and you're rightfully skeptical. You've probably told yourself that a stiff, aching back is just a part of getting older. It's a toll we pay for a life well lived. Today, I want to respectfully and logically challenge that idea. This isn't about fear-mongering or some new age nonsense. This is about understanding how our bodies change and how we can work with them, not against them. My promise to you is this. By the end of our time together, you won't just understand why that old gym class staple could be hurting you, but you'll have a clear, simple, and incredibly effective toolkit of smarter, safer ways to maintain your mobility and protect your back for all the years to come. We're going to swap out old habits not because they were foolish, but because we now have better information. The goal today is ambitious. We're going to deconstruct some of the most common stretching myths we were all taught, and then rebuild a new foundation based on what modern science and medicine tell us is safest and most effective for a mature spine. And this isn't just my opinion. We'll be drawing on insights from some of the most respected institutions in the world, like the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins Medicine, and the UK's National Health Service. First, we're going to dive deep into that classic standing toe touch and the family of forward-bending stretches, and I'll explain the biomechanics of why they can be so problematic. We'll use a simple analogy involving a jelly donut that will make it crystal clear. Then, we'll talk about the dangerous habit of bouncing in our stretches. From there, we'll investigate other common movements, like certain twisting exercises, and I'll show you a subtle change that makes all the difference. And most importantly, we will then spend the entire second half of this video on the solutions, the powerful, back-friendly exercises and stretches that build true core stability and flexibility, helping you move with more confidence and less pain. You'll definitely want to stick around for the simple towel stretch we'll cover, which is a total game changer for anyone with tight hamstrings and a sensitive back. And just a quick but very important reminder, I am a researcher and a passionate educator, but I'm not your doctor. This conversation is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. The goal here is to empower you with knowledge so you can have more informed conversations with your own trusted healthcare professionals. Always consult with your physician or a physical therapist before starting any new exercise program, especially if you have pre-existing conditions or chronic pain. All right, let's begin by putting that old gym class hero, the standing toe touch, under the microscope. We've all done it 1,000 times. We stand up, lock our knees, and fold our bodies in half, reaching for the floor. The intention behind it is pure gold, to stretch out those tight hamstring muscles in the back of our legs and to lengthen the lower back. For a 16-year-old with resilient, well-hydrated spinal discs and pliable ligaments, this movement is often done without a second thought. But for a body that's over 60, the story is very different. To understand why, I want you to think of the discs in your spine like little jelly donuts. They sit between each vertebra, acting as cushions. They have a tough outer layer and a soft, jelly-like center. When you bend forward from your waist, especially with straight legs, you are dramatically rounding your lower back. This action squeezes the front of your jelly donut discs and puts an immense amount of pressure on their back wall. Over time, and with repetition, this can cause that back wall to bulge, or in a worst-case scenario, herniate, which means some of that jelly center pushes out. When that happens, it can press on the nerves in your spinal canal, leading to that sharp shooting pain we know as sciatica, or a persistent nagging ache. I had a neighbor, a wonderful man named Frank, a passionate golfer in his late 60s. Every morning, he'd go out on his porch and do 10 toe touches, just like he did in 1975. He complained constantly of a deep ache in his low back after 9 holes. He thought he just needed to stretch more. The real issue was that his primary stretch was actually aggravating the very problem he was trying to solve. The action step here is simple, but crucial. For now, just stop. Take the standing toe touch out of your routine. We will replace it with something far superior later on. And a clear red flag if you ever feel numbness, tingling, or a sharp electric pain shooting down your leg when you bend forward, that is not a signal to push further. That is your body's emergency brake, and it's a clear sign to stop immediately and consult a doctor. So if bending straight down is a potential problem, what about adding a little extra oomph to it? This brings us to another ghost from the gym class of the past, the habit of bouncing into a stretch. We were often told to bounce, to pulse, to use momentum to try and get just a little bit deeper. It felt like you were really working the muscle, making progress with every little bob. This is a technique called ballistic stretching, and for an aging body, it can be incredibly counterproductive. Here's why. Your muscles have a built-in protective mechanism called the stretch reflex. Think of it like a watchdog, guarding your muscles and joints. When you stretch a muscle slowly and gently, the watchdog is calm. It lets you proceed. But if you try to force a stretch quickly and aggressively, like bouncing, the watchdog sounds the alarm. It perceives a threat of being overstretched and torn. In response, it sends a signal to the muscle to do the exact opposite of what you want. It tenses up and contracts to protect itself. So not only are you failing to lengthen the muscle, you're actually fighting against your own body's safety system. This can lead to microscopic tears in the muscle fibers, which can cause soreness and inflammation. Over time, repeatedly triggering this reflex can actually decrease your flexibility and joint stability, not increase it. The action step is to replace all bouncing with slow, controlled, static holds. When you get to the point of light tension in a stretch, you breathe, you relax into it, and you hold it still. The major red flag here is any kind of sudden pop or sharp, localized pain you feel during a bouncing motion. That could indicate a muscle strain or ligament sprain. This idea of forcing our bodies into a position to prove our flexibility leads us directly to a famous test that many of us took in school, one that might have given us a completely wrong idea about back health. I'm talking about the sit and reach test. You remember it, right? Sitting on the floor, legs out straight, reaching for that wooden box with the ruler on top. A good score made you feel limber and healthy. A poor score was a mark of shame. We were led to believe that this test was the ultimate measure of lower back and hamstring flexibility. The problem is, that's a myth. While it's a decent measure of how flexible your hamstrings are, studies have shown that the sit and reach test has a surprisingly low correlation with the actual flexibility of your lumbar spine, your lower back. It's like judging the health of a car's engine by looking at how clean the tires are. They're on the same vehicle, but one doesn't give you the full story about the other. Many people can touch their toes not because their back is flexible, but because their hamstrings are long or they have a certain hip structure. Conversely, someone can have a very healthy and mobile spine but not be able to reach very far because of genetically tight hamstrings. This fixation on the sit and reach test created a generation of us who thought the key to a healthy back was to just keep forcing that forward fold. The action step here is a mental one. Let go of the sit and reach as your benchmark for back health. Your new goal isn't to touch your toes, but to be able to move through your day without pain, to pick up your grandchildren, to garden, to get in and out of the car with ease. Functional strength and pain-free movement is the new gold standard. So we've talked about the potential pitfalls of bending forward. But what about twisting? A good wringing out of the spine can feel incredibly relieving, can't it? Many yoga classes and stretching routines include deep twists where you try to turn your torso as far as you can. And while gentle rotation is a natural and healthy movement, the way we often perform it can put unnecessary stress on the lower back. Here's the key piece of information. Your spine is not designed the same way from top to bottom. Your lumbar spine, that lower section of your back, is built for stability. Think of it as the strong foundational pillar of a skyscraper. It's designed to handle heavy loads and allow for forward and backward bending. It's not designed for a great deal of rotation. In fact, it only has about 5 to 10 degrees of rotational capacity. Your thoracic spine, which is your upper and mid-back area from the base of your neck to the bottom of your ribcage, is the opposite. It's designed for mobility and rotation. This is where your body is supposed to twist from. The problem is, when many of us do a twisting stretch, we try to force the rotation from our lower back, which can torque those jelly donut discs and strain the surrounding ligaments. It's like trying to twist open a jar by holding the lid still and twisting the bottom. It's inefficient and puts stress in the wrong place. The action step is to change where you initiate the twist. Whether you're sitting in a chair or standing, first gently engage your core muscles. Imagine lightly tightening a belt around your middle. Then, think about turning from your chest and shoulders, not your hips or lower back. Keep your hips pointing forward as much as possible and let your upper body do the work. This simple shift directs the movement to your thoracic spine, where it belongs, freeing up your upper back and taking the pressure off your vulnerable lumbar region. Okay, that was a lot of information, and we've covered a lot of what not to do. It might feel a little bit like I've just taken away all your familiar tools. So let's just take a quick pause right here. Let's take a breath and recap the big ideas so far. We've learned that the classic standing toe touch can compress our spinal discs. We've learned that bouncing or ballistic stretching can actually make our muscles tighter and more prone to injury. We've debunked the myth of the sit and reach test as a true measure of back health, and we've discovered the importance of twisting from our upper back, not our lower back. We have cleared the deck of old, outdated information. Now we get to build something new and better in its place. And if you're finding this deep dive helpful so far, if any of this is clicking for you, I would be so grateful if you took just 1 second to tap that like button below this video. It truly helps this information reach more people just like you who could benefit from it. Thank you so much for that. Now, let's transition from the problems to the powerful solutions. The first and most crucial solution might surprise you. It has less to do with stretching and more to do with stability. We often operate under the assumption that if a muscle feels tight, the only answer is to stretch it. If your back feels stiff, you stretch it. If your hamstrings are tight, you stretch them. It seems logical, but sometimes a muscle isn't tight because it's short. It's tight because it's weak and overworked. Imagine your spine for a moment. Its stability depends on a strong, supportive corset of muscles around your midsection, your abdominal muscles in the front, your obliques on the sides, and the deep muscles of your lower back. This is your core. Think of this core musculature as a natural weightlifting belt. When it's strong and engaged, it supports your spine during all your daily movements. But if that core is weak or inactive, other smaller muscles, like those in your lower back and your hamstrings, have to jump in and work overtime to try and stabilize your pelvis and spine. They tense up, not because they need to be stretched longer, but because they're desperately trying to do a job they weren't designed for. They are acting as protective stabilizers. In this case, aggressively stretching them is like telling an exhausted security guard to relax while the front door is wide open. The real solution is to strengthen the core to let those overworked muscles finally take a break. So how do we build this core stability without doing old-school sit-ups, which, like the toe touch, can also cause that unhealthy rounding of the lower back? The answer lies in two simple, spine-safe exercises recommended by experts, including those at the UK's National Health Service. The first is the bird dog. To do this, you'll start on your hands and knees in a tabletop position, with your hands directly under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Your back should be flat, like a table. First, engage your core by gently pulling your belly button in towards your spine. Then, slowly and with control, extend your right arm straight out in front of you and your left leg straight out behind you. The goal is to keep your torso perfectly still without letting your hips rock or your back sag. Hold for a few seconds, then slowly return to the start and switch sides. The second exercise is the partial crunch. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. You can place your hands under the small of your back for support. Again, gently tighten your abdominal muscles. Then slowly lift just your head and shoulders off the floor, no more than a few inches. This is not a full sit-up. You're just creating a small, controlled contraction in your abs without rounding your lower back off the floor. Performing these gentle exercises regularly builds that muscular corset that protects your spine from the inside out. Now that we are building that strong, stable foundation, we can finally return to the problem that started this whole conversation: those tight hamstrings. How do we stretch them safely and effectively without putting our lower back at risk? This brings us to the payoff, the direct upgrade to the standing toe touch. And this one comes highly recommended by the physical therapy experts at the Mayo Clinic. It's called the supine hamstring stretch, or as I like to call it, the towel stretch, and it is brilliantly simple. You lie on your back on the floor, maybe on a yoga mat or carpet. Keep both knees bent initially. Now, take a long towel, a yoga strap, or even a dog leash, and loop it around the ball of one of your feet. Hold an end of the towel in each hand. While keeping your back and head flat on the floor, slowly straighten that leg up towards the ceiling. Use the towel to gently pull the leg towards you until you feel a light to moderate stretch in the back of your thigh. Your other leg can either remain bent with your foot on the floor for more back support, or you can straighten it along the floor for a deeper stretch. The beauty of this stretch is profound. By lying on your back, your spine remains in a safe, neutral, and completely supported position. All of the force is directed exactly where you want it, into the hamstring muscle. You are completely isolating the stretch without any of that dangerous compression on your spinal discs. This is the smarter, more precise way to achieve the goal that the standing toe touch was always aiming for. This brings us to a final, crucial question. Once you're in this safe and effective stretch, how long should you hold it for? This question leads us to our final and perhaps most important mindset shift. We need to challenge the old ingrained motto of no pain, no gain. This phrase was drilled into us in sports and in the gym. It was seen as a sign of character, of toughness, of pushing through discomfort to achieve results. But when it comes to flexibility and joint health as we age, that motto is not just outdated, it's dangerous. The new, smarter motto is, if you're in pain, there is no gain. Pain is not a signal of progress. It's your body's essential communication system telling you that you are pushing into a danger zone and risking injury. When you're stretching, you should be aiming for a feeling of mild to moderate tension, a feeling of lengthening, but never sharp, stabbing, or radiating pain. And research gives us specific guidance on this. For years, the standard advice was to hold a stretch for 15 to 30 seconds. And a review of studies did show that the greatest change in a muscle's range of motion with a static stretch often occurs within that window. However, more recent research has suggested that for older adults, specifically looking to improve hamstring flexibility, holding that stretch for a longer duration, up to 60 seconds, may be even more beneficial. So the action step is twofold. First, listen to your body intently. Back off if you feel pain. Second, once you're in a safe position like the towel stretch, try holding it for at least 30 and up to 60 seconds. Breathe deeply and try to relax the muscle you're stretching. This allows the muscle's watchdog, that stretch reflex we talked about, to calm down and gives the muscle tissue time to actually lengthen and adapt. It's about patience and cooperation with your body, not fighting against it. I remember talking to a gentleman who had struggled with sciatica for years. He was always trying to beat the tightness with aggressive stretching. It was only when a physical therapist convinced him to do less, to be more gentle, and to hold his stretches for longer without pain that he finally found lasting relief. He learned to work with his body, and it made all the difference. So let's bring it all together. Over the past few minutes, you haven't just learned what not to do. You've actively upgraded your personal health toolkit. Think of these as victories. You've earned a victory over uncertainty by understanding the real reason that old toe touch isn't your friend anymore. You've achieved a win for your long-term health by replacing it with the spine-safe towel stretch. You've upgraded from mindless, bouncing movements to controlled, mindful holds. You've upgraded your entire philosophy from no pain, no gain to move smarter, not harder. You've shifted your focus from a meaningless score on a sit-and-reach box to the real-world goal of playing with your grandkids and enjoying your hobbies with freedom and confidence. This knowledge is power. It's the power to take control of how you feel each day and to actively protect your body for the vibrant, active life you deserve to live. It's not about being old. It's about being wise. Now I would love to hear from you. Which of these points was the biggest aha moment for you? Was it the jelly donut analogy, the reason we shouldn't bounce, or was it the simple effectiveness of the towel stretch? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your insights and experiences enrich this entire community, and I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into moving smarter for a healthier back, and you want more practical, no-nonsense content designed for this chapter of life, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's an investment in your own health and well-being, and that is the most valuable investment you can ever make. Be well, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next video.